This conversation is part of a series. Our first part that we had was on restorative practices, self-care reform, which was led by Marcus and our board member Tamara. And it was a very fruitful conversation, which really led into these three topics that Marcus brought, was about empowering the mind and informing the body and healing the spirit through restorative practices. And this series for today is on exploring restorative practices and how this can include and aligning ourselves with something a little bit more richer in our lives as the world is going through challenges. So we're very happy to have Anthony start us off with a practice that he wanted to include in the conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah. So just some brief little framing on the practice. One of the, I would say, for me, most powerful, but often sort of most overlooked healing practices is really just having another person's caring presence, or someone sort of showing up for you in a way that communicates, I'm here for you, right? Like my attention, my presence is like fully with you. I'm here for you. Tell me what's going on. I may not be able to fix it for you, but like I might hold your hand. I might give you a hug. I might just sit with you and just like communicate that you're not alone right now. And I imagine we've all kind of had that experience of maybe offering that to someone, or perhaps receiving it. But what this practice is going to involve is us to explore, what might it be like, or is it even possible to offer ourselves that sort of same caring presence, or that tuning in or checking in with ourselves, like, how are you today? You know, I'm here for you. What's going on? And so that's what this practice is going to involve, and really it's just an exploration, you know, or potentially shifting from how we may relate to ourselves. I know I'm sort of guilty of this sometimes, and some of the folks I work with will share that they are too, that we often relate to ourselves in a much different way. We're much more harsh and critical with ourselves. It's, you know, if we're going through something, it's like, oh, you know, what's wrong with you? Why are you like this? Or suck it up, you know, it's no big deal. And we would never do that to a friend, right, who came to us in that way. So yeah, this practice is about maybe shifting that orientation toward ourselves a little bit more, toward care and that healing presence that we can offer. Okay, so what it would involve is, you know, you don't have to change your posture or anything, but I want you to be comfortable. It should be somewhat upright so you can stay awake and alert. And if it feels okay for you, feel free to close your eyes. If not, that's okay too. You can just keep your eyes open and maybe just lower your gaze a bit so you're not so distracted by, you know, what's happening on the screen. And then what I'll invite you to do is just take a few deep breaths. And then you can allow the normal pace of your breathing to return. And the first thing I'll invite you to do is see if you can begin to feel the body. Maybe notice some sensations of the body, maybe your feet on the floor, or some connection to whatever you're seated on. Maybe feeling clothing on your skin, or just noticing like, I have a body. It's here right now. It's taking up some space. And see if you can really connect to those physical sensations. That's going to help move you from that thinking, analytical mind into the feeling, experiencing body. And now we're going to just turn a little bit more fully to the body and check in. Sort of ask, like, how are you today, my body? I'm here for you. Talk to me. What's going on? What's it like for you? And then just tune in, sort of listen or feel. What's it like in the body right now? Maybe notice where there might be some discomfort or tension, but also notice where there might be some ease or warmth, lightness. And whatever you find, you don't need to judge it or fix it or do anything, but just honor it, just notice, say, I hear you. I see. That's what's going on. And then next, maybe let's check in with the heart. So you might place a hand or two over the heart just to feel some deeper sense of connection there. And then in the same way, just tune in, check in. How are you today, my heart? What's it like for you? And just feel. Just be with whatever arises, whether it feels comfortable or uncomfortable. What matters is that you're present with it. And then we'll take a minute to check in with the mind, the headspace, but we're going to do it a little bit differently as sort of an observer, not so much as a participant in all the activity in the mind as we normally are. So just like observing or kind of taking a look, like what's it like? What's it like today, mind? What's going on up there? Just having a look. Is it restless? Is it settled? Scattered? Is it focused? Whatever it is, it's okay. It's what it's supposed to be. But just notice, just honor that experience. And then lastly, maybe we can just take this whole being, this human being that you're inhabiting, and do kind of one final check-in. Like, how are you today, my dear? I'm here for you. What's going on? And maybe through this process, some maybe need was communicated to you, or you noticed something that you weren't aware of before. And again, you don't need to judge it or fix it or rush to change it. Just honor it, just notice it. Maybe if you are able to come back to it at some later time today or even throughout our conversation, definitely do that as a further sort of act of care. And then you can, as you're ready, open your eyes and come back into our shared space.
Thank you, Anthony. This is a wonderful way to segue into our ingredients of a good conversation. For many of us, we are familiar with these ingredients, but for those who have joined us for the first time today, the founder of the Peaceful World Foundation, Sami Sunchild, she crafted these ingredients of a good conversation during her travels overseas, beginning in the mid-1940s, leading all the way up till the late 90s. And during her travels, she noticed that people weren't on devices. People were engaging with each other. And she observed that these ingredients offer a new opportunity to converse in a different way. So in the tradition, I'll read the first one, and anyone can come in and pick it up from there. The first one is differences, new points of view.
Similarities, shared feelings and experiences.
Speaking from life experience, not theory.
Listening, really listening.
Understanding, empathy, not persuasion.
Brevity, keep it short and to the point.
Yes, yes. So the topic that we're exploring today is furthering a bit more on what Anthony just offered us, is for us to share and converse a bit around our restorative practices. Mazin is the founder of Holistic Underground, and a lot of the work that their organization has done has also been around restorative healing through creating sacred spaces in our homes, in our professional lives, with colleagues. So I will leave it to Mazin to probably start off with a couple of questions for us to explore together.
Yeah, thank you. What I would love to share, and for just have us consider a little bit, is when I first started learning about holistic health and different approaches to healing and wellness, I was introduced by a acupuncturist, a teacher. Her name was Umar Bhatnagar, and she was an acupuncturist, Ayurvedic healer, and she introduced us this different perspectives on healing. One being the mechanistic approach, where your body is like a car, right? It's like your body's this machine. You got your pelvic floor and your spinal column and the walls of your, this, and then the roof of your mouth. And, it's this very mechanical thing. And, if you have a broken part, you remove the hip and put in a new hip, and you remove the knee and put in a plastic knee, right? So it's like a machine, and, the body is this thing to be fixed. If it's missing some chemical, you inject some chemicals. And then the other approach is the body as a garden. And that's kind of this idea that your body is this living system. You're not just an organism, but you're an environment, of bacterias and all these organs, and they're all living and hanging out together. And so we try to use this metaphor of the body as a garden, the organization as a garden, the society as a garden, as an ecosystem, and where do we need to change the air or the water? Where do we need to do some weeding even? And the thing that's come to my mind, or the thing that I've seen about that, and what I want us to consider together, is this idea of restorative healing almost being this set of promises that we make to our body, just like it might be a set of promises we make to our teammates, to our friends, to our housemates, right? When I started taking care of plants in my home, I noticed that at first I thought just suddenly, it's wilting and it's having an issue. And then I'm like, oh, no, if I was paying attention, I saw that, it took a couple of weeks. And so sometimes we make promises to our body, like I want to give my body this amount of water every day. I want to feed my body certain kinds of things. And what's it like to be in this coherent relationship with our body? We make the promises to our body, and then we keep them. And, that might be reflected in other relationships. So the question I'd like to ask is, what are some of the promises, that we make to our bodies, that we make to maybe our individual bodies and our larger bodies, that are restorative, that are healing, that keep that relationship healthy, keep it vibrant? Maybe these are promises that you've you've made. Maybe they're ones that, you know, we can keep, or ones we can't. I know I don't always keep my promises to my body, and it's part of why I'm here in Bolinas trying to make up for lost time. But yeah, that's what I would love to have us discuss a little bit. You know, what are some of the promises that we can make to have this, you know, healing relationship with our individual bodies and our collective bodies?
I'll just mention maybe a continuation of what we started with the exercise, which is acknowledging. You know, you're in a garden. I think one of the first things is acknowledging what's there, and in this case, you know, bodies within, bodies without, the society. So just acknowledging maybe all members of society, just like all other elements, you know, within us.
Thank you for that, Julian, and the question is a powerful one. What's coming up for me is sort of acknowledging or even honoring, like, I have a body and like it has needs and I'm not always connected to it. I think with being on Zoom so much, where it's like so disembodied almost, or I work at the University of Virginia, which is a very sort of academic and intellectual space where, you know, we kind of live from the neck up, and just noticing how easy it is, or how our, you know, the cultures in which I operate in, like, just bring me into that mental headspace, and like that's where the important stuff happens. That's where the thoughts and the, you know, the analysis and the connections happen. And I think, yes, there's some value there, but I think I'm also over time learning more and more the important, not just the importance and like the necessity to be in the body, to tend to the needs of the body, but also all of the wisdom, all of the creativity, all the intuition, all the connection that happens in the body, right? Not just in the headspace. But in order for that to happen, my body needs to be healthy. It needs to be tended to, right? It needs to be cared for. And I think, but we're also maybe kind of rewriting some of those dominant cultural scripts of like forget the body, forget, you know, your feet or your gut, like it's all about the mind, it's all about the head. And I think that's something we can kind of begin to bring a little bit more balance between, you know, the head and the body, the head and the heart, or those sorts of things. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank both of you for your techniques, which are very relevant to me right now. I just yesterday finished 6 weeks of radiation, which has very pronounced effects on your body. And when I went through the exercise that Anthony told us, it made me very aware of that. But and what are you promising to your body? Well, I'm promising to recover, and I know I've been told how to do it. And it's you know, it's not my case is not serious, but it's just getting back to normal. And as far as caring for others, this is kind of a hard time for us because my wife is in the hospital with leukemia and just had a stem cell transplant yesterday, which was very successful. But she'll be there for, and our son caring for his mother donated the stem cells. So she'll be there for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going in right after this. I may have to leave a little early to visit her, which I do every day. But she certainly knows that I'm caring for her, and not just me, but so many other people too. And unfortunately, only one person is allowed to visit the hospital every day. So I guess I'm the most physically caring person right now. But anyway, I want to thank you both, and it was very relevant to me.
Dave, thank you so much for sharing, because I've been thinking a lot about you and your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And what little practices, can you share a little bit about maybe a small practice that you do that helps you to return to another place inside?
For me, well, I need to get outdoors as much as I can. I run every day. I have I do breathing, deep breathing when I want to relax. I have a set of physical exercises, which I learned in college, which I still do, which are probably way out of date, but you know, it takes about a half an hour. I do it outdoors on a mat, and it's very sort of relaxing and good for me, I think. And I try to eat well, except the doctors now keep giving me different things I'm supposed to eat and not supposed to eat, and it gets very confusing. So I might just go off on my own and figure out what I want to eat.
Oh, yes, walking for me has been my promise. Really taking intentional walks in the morning, you know, just to get up early to start the day with a walk. So I can send prayers too. It's almost like my way of sending a prayer to all y'all, you know, and to what's going on in the world too, just sending a lot of love as I walk. And oftentimes I'm greeted by a bird or greeted by a butterfly, and just trying to stay closer to that which needs us. I think the outer world, the ecosystem, inwardly and outwardly, we need each other. This idea that we can live without these structures, it's mind-boggling. We cannot live without the natural world. We won't be human. So I make these intentional efforts in the morning. Some days the walks are shorter, some days they're longer. And even this morning, it was just a little bit overcast, and I really had to find that will to just get on, put your shoes on and just do it. It's so easy to just stay in bed another 15 minutes. So that's been my promise, Mazin.
Yes, I love it, Heidi. And I want to name this because I sense it in the space. Sometimes the word promise, we can feel like, oh no, I don't want to break my promise, right? And I have to keep my promises, and then there's this weight to it, right? And I find that what you were speaking to, Anthony, about how we end up relating to our body. If we look at in our society, we have restorative justice and we have punitive justice. And one of them is like, well, you broke the law, you didn't keep the law, so you have to punish, and the other one is like, well, a mess occurred, something bad happened, let's fix it, let's heal it, let's bring it back to, its healthy living system, and condition. And so I love that, Julian, you use the term honoring, right? Like, we can't always keep our promises. It's just not possible. It's like, there are days that I say to myself, I'm going to go meditate, and I don't, but can I honor it? Can I acknowledge, yeah, I didn't meditate today. Okay, sorry, body. I know I told you I'd give you that, that salad today. I didn't get to it, but I'm going to honor the promise. I'm going to do it tomorrow, bringing some lightness, bringing some compassion into that relationship feels important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really liked the metaphor of our body as a garden, because one of my promises is that I'm determined to grow roots, to be able to ground myself no matter where I am. I have my roots and I can tap into them. But you know what? Recently, I noticed even in my home, because I'm so determined to grow roots, I ended up overwatering some of my plants. And what did that lead to? Root rot. So my plant is in the process of going on to its next life. But it's a reminder of how just because we made a promise doesn't mean we always have to be constantly monitoring it, because you might actually give it too much attention.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep.
I think there's many analogies in our lives right now, right? What's going outwardly and how is it affecting us inwardly? Mm-hmm. So who would like to share? I would love to hear from our international guests.
I'd like to share a practice that I've been trying to, it's a promise I'm trying to keep. I've often found that I start my days really well and positive. Oh, it's all going well. And then I get stuck in my head by the end of the day. And I've tried to break that by taking an hour outside for my lunch. So I go out and sit in the garden. I'm loving all the garden metaphors because it's so relevant for me right now. just to sit out in nature and just eat and just be connected to my meal and coming back into my body as I'm eating and just observing what's going on around me. And that's been very helpful in kind of getting back into that space that I'd start the day with, rather than kind of spiraling downwards. So that's been something that I'm trying to keep up with.
Thank you.
Such beautiful, inspiring ways of living that I'm absorbing. Thank you so much for everyone's wisdom. One of the practices I have is to stay connected to my emotional body. As a psychotherapist and a father and a human being, there's just so many emotions to metabolize, watching the news or sitting with a client or being with my son when he cries. And I know if I'm not giving attention to my emotions and honoring them and releasing them, then I can't have space to hold more, hold other people, hold other processes. And I do that through meditation, but I also do that through turning off, unplugging, by being in the world without my device, because my device is like a addiction that keeps me from feeling pain. So that's one of my practices.
Doug, do you mind if I ask you to just say a little bit more about what you mean by metabolizing the emotions? I've seen some folks use that word, and I'm really interested in just hearing a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah. One example is I do a daily morning meditation, and I don't know, 8 months ago, my son was home and he's 18 and his room was crazy and he didn't do his chores. And whatever happened, I just had so much anger in me. And as I was sitting with the anger, it was almost unbearable. But in my meditation, I didn't get up. I wanted to go yell at him. I wanted to go like intervene. I wanted to release it, but I just felt it, and it was painful, but I just stayed with it and just said, this is my emotion. This is anger. And I didn't identify with it. I held it in my psyche, in my awareness. And by doing that, at the end, it wasn't as sharp and painful. It was the wave moved through instead of stayed stuck. And so that's true with all of the emotions. For me, I just have to bring awareness, honor them, have compassion, and the wave can move versus stay stuck. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you for that elaboration. That's beautiful.
That brings up something for myself, just with what Doug had said, about just feeling stuff. I think you definitely just have to feel things sometimes, regardless of whatever emotion it is. If it's hurt, anger, whatever, I think just honoring that feeling and then, working through it and then letting it go. I've been telling, my son was recently in the hospital for a couple of days, and he lives in California and I live here in New Mexico. So it was pretty hard not being there. And afterwards he was so depressed. And I told him, I was like, feel it, let yourself feel sad, be sad. I said, but don't hold on to it. Just find ways to, let that go. But I think a lot of times we just want to make ourselves better. So we're just like, okay, just let's forget about it and pretend we're happy. And, that isn't always the healthiest thing. So that's been my thing, is feel it, honor it, and then let it go. Because I've been that person where I just push things, off in the back of my head and pretend they don't exist when really they're there. And I think that is a way to move through things and to grow, is just to feel it. And then, when it's time, let that go.
Thanks for sharing that, Tamara. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One of them is that your conversation, Tamara, right now reminds me of the practice of thought blocking. I've been to therapy before, and I've heard about this practice and kind of applied it myself, where a negative thought comes to us and we block it before it sort of takes hold. Like we wish not to go there, right? Sort of in our mind. But as was shared earlier, right? By Doug, um, it's very different when you so almost embrace an emotion and sit with it, as you said. That's really useful, and I want to thank you for that. I also just wanted to say one quick thing. Earlier, Heidi, you mentioned you said the word mind boggling at one point, and I was just immediately thought of body boggling, like how something can be body boggling, and I think this conversation's around that, and it just makes me think differently and feel differently. So
I've been like listening to what everybody says, and I have to admit that like I lost sense of what the prompt was, because the like trickle effect of what conversation sparks and resonates in the garden, and so I'm trying to think. I think it was like something just about body, and I remember when it was said, I was like thinking about like walking is something that I do, but then I started thinking a little bit about just like transitions and how I've had space to try different things. So it was like I did like a 30-day yoga challenge and then a 30-day like meditation thing. And so for me, it's been like a lot of exploration that I feel like I've had space given the pandemic, and like not feeling like, okay, I got to eat and then I got to go out the door and then I'm going to get the bus to get the train to take the other bus to get to work. And it's like all that stuff has is just different now. And so it's given me a little bit more space to try different things. And then I was really feeling into Anthony's kind of like comments about being on Zoom and feeling like disembodied. And it was so funny this week with some coworkers, we had like a Zoom call and someone's internet was out and we're like, we need the person on the call. What are we going to do? And then we realized we could have like a 3-way phone conference, at which time we didn't need to see each other. We could still have a conversation and we could move. So like there's something about that movement of body that I used to have walking meetings. I used to be able to take a break and go outside. And now it just feels like things are scheduled more back to back with this stuff. So it's just, I'm just like kind of acknowledging like change and adaptation and like the transition period of what all that does for like the mind and the body. And I feel like I'm all over the place a little bit. And part of that maybe because I just moved down to Santa Barbara. So I'm also just like,
you did it.
And feeling like, oh, it's so sunny here. Like now I'll do make these new promises. Like, okay, I'm gonna like, I found an acupuncturist. I like, maybe I'll have a personal trainer here. So like all over with everything, but I'm really enjoying hearing from you all and this space that's being provided today, and taking it a little bit is just like a slowdown too, because I was like, oh, I don't know if I have time for this, and I was like, okay, I'll make some time. I'll join the convo, see what happens.
So good to have you, Claudia. It's good to see you.
Oh, you
yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I feel a little nervous to share. I thought I would be listening on this call mostly. And I do appreciate the questions and all the reflections. Thank you, everyone. I'm sitting in my garden right now. And that is one of the practices that I have been doing to take care of myself, my body, mind, and spirit. And I've been reflecting on the question about what have I been promising my body. That question really hit me. It hit my body, I guess you could say. And I don't have an answer for that. I don't know that I've been making promises. But something that has come up for me is that I do keep telling myself like, well, I'll be more physically active when, because things in my life have been really, it's been hard to create routines because things are so different than they used to be when it was easier to make routines in my schedule. So yeah, I think there has been a lot of, well, we'll do this together, body, when things are XYZ. And I hadn't noticed that I'd been doing that. So I just appreciate the insight today. Thank you.
I just want to share that I'm so thankful to be in this space and for everyone's input on this conversation. Just like Betty, it's really got my gears thinking on what is my promise? What am I doing for myself? How am I showing up for myself? As someone that's going through some trying times, it's been a number one question is, what am I going to do for myself? Checking in with myself. And for me, at the beginning, right before COVID happened, we got a dog, which has been very helpful to get outside, but to also remind me to reflect. And as Genesis said earlier, to plant my roots, to be grounded, and finding the time to really check in with myself, I think has been the number one promise for myself, that I don't even realize that I need to check in and promise to myself sometimes. As well as trying to incorporate some yoga in there for that meditation. So Anthony, I appreciate you kind of doing that practice at the beginning of this conversation, because it really just reminded me how meditation and just taking a step back and to really ask ourselves those questions is a game changer for our mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gina. Mm-hmm.
If I may, I'd like to share a little anecdote about wisdom of the body that's just happening in my life right now. Anthony, you were talking about how the body has all this wisdom and all this knowledge, really. And Betty, what you and what Gina were saying, a few months ago, I promised my body that I would take more breaks during the day. And then the breaks that I scheduled, that I promised, I'd actually take them. I wouldn't like work halfway through them. And I promised my body a couple of things, that I would be just giving it more space, giving it more rest. And I kept doing the thing of like, once I finish this contract, once I finish this project, like it's going to be, once I hire an assistant, like once I, no. And about 7 weeks ago, my voice basically stopped working. Like it just kind of gradually started hurting whenever I would speak. And it was actually up until 3 days ago that I could only talk about an hour a day before I'd feel like severe pain in my throat, my vocal cord. So it's great timing that I'm feeling better and we had this conversation today. And what I've interpreted this as is, as I've deepened my relationship with my body and been more explicit with the promises that I make to it and listen to it more, it's almost my body has started becoming more vocal, has started becoming more of a teammate for me and less of a for lack of better terms, slave to my brain, that just like I beat it around and it does what I say, but it's kind of like a citizen now. And it's like, hey, I have a say in the situation. You made a promise, you have not kept it. We are taking away your voice until you keep your promise. And it's beautiful. And at first I was like, why are you doing this to me? You betrayed me. Like I need my voice. And then after a while, I was like, body, thank you so much for really holding me accountable to my promise. And I since then have been making a lot of changes in my life and also telling the truth more about things. And my voice started coming back just like that. Acupuncturist couldn't figure it out. Doctor couldn't figure it out. Massage, they're all just like, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, this is between me and my body then. That's what it is.
That's such a great story, Mazin. Yeah, thank you.
That kind of reminds me of a situation that I had. I ended up getting really sick a couple months ago, and I think I even have an Instagram post about it because Heidi sent me a care package about, to me it was like, when your body forces you to finally take a rest. you know, that's kind of what happened to me.
I think our bodies are always communicating with us, and they're like sending us the signals. And at first it's just like a little like, hey, you know, tugging on your shirt, like, hey, listen to me. And you can pick up on those signals, right? Through checking in with yourself, through, you know, just feeling, honoring the needs of the body. But I think that what folks are also talking about is like those signals might get louder or like more painful, right? A poke becomes like a slap, like wake up, I need something, right? And it can be jarring, but that's the body's way of like, hey, you weren't listening. I was sending lots of signals before, right? I was like trying to tell you my needs before and you weren't listening. So like now I'm gonna really send you, I'm gonna make sure you get this message. And I think we can avoid some of those like more kind of painful wake up calls, or like our body, like us just shutting down in order to like get our needs, as we learn how to listen, or even like spend time listening to the body, and honoring those needs, like, oh, I hear you and I'm going to do something about it, so that we don't have to get to the point where, you know, you're completely shutting down.
Mhm. It's almost like we need to learn the language of the body, right? The language, because there's a language there, a very foreign language, right? Because we're so disconnected. But these little pockets of what we do during the day, and these little, it's very small. And like you said, they send these signals, but am I ready to listen to this new language? Yeah. Am I interested in my life enough to take the time to say, okay, let's check in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this speaks really well to that contrast that we were making earlier, right? The sort of the mechanical, where you take your car when it's broken, versus the other, the more organic tending, right? I find your last comment, Heidi, about language is really interesting, because it's almost like a language that we do know intuitively somehow, right? But yeah, we're maybe not, we're kind of forgetting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I know I don't want to lose my voice, Mazin. How did you do it? Like, how many days were you without a voice?
I started doing like 3 days of vocal rest a week, and then only speaking for 1 hour or 2 hours a day for the rest of the time. So I did a lot of my meetings by Zoom chat. So people will be talking and I'll be responding by Zoom chat. And then I also have this app. So it's like,
I am on vocal rest to heal my voice, so won't be speaking much. Great job. Abundance, abundant. I appreciate you. Bless.
That's great. That's great. We do need these little things to remind us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we're close to our end here. We have a couple of more minutes left, but if anybody else wants to share something else, or we wrap up with something, I leave it to Anthony and to Mazin.
I just want to say, you know, I hope that each of us might find like a small, really small, sweet, like easy, attainable, you know, thing maybe to do for our bodies, or to do for the bodies of someone we love, like something really small, you know, like maybe just an extra glass of water, or, you know, 2 minutes of stretching. But I find that at least my body, it responds with so much gratitude, even when what I do for it is small. It doesn't need to be big, fancy, gonna go on a retreat, we're going to Hawaii, you know, body, you know, I'm gonna buy you a Lamborghini. No, like it's a very easy to please, you know, partner in life, because our body is our partner for life. So I just wanted to invite us all to maybe do something small, very, very small and sweet for the body.
Anthony, thank you for joining us. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
always a pleasure to be a part of these conversations. And yeah, I really appreciate you all, participating in that opening activity with me, and then also just sharing all your wisdom. I mean, I know I've received quite just as much, if not more, than I offered on this call. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. How can we learn more about what the Dalai Lama Fellows are up to? Do you have a newsletter circulating, or?
So our newsletter is connected to the larger Contemplative Sciences Center newsletter at UVA. So if you and some of that stuff is a bit like UVA centric, although there is plenty of stuff open to the public. If you're interested in Dalai Lama Fellows in particular, probably the best place to find us currently is either on our website, DalaiLamaFellows.org, or Facebook page, Dalai Lama Fellows, and we'll provide updates there.
Yes, I look forward to some collaborative work with you in the near future.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.